And we are live. Welcome back to Race Talk, the podcast with Karting Insiders. I am your host, Omar Aswat, and I'm delighted to be joined by my good friend, Rami Azzam. How are you, Rami?
All good, my friend. It's been a while. How's things?
Everything is well. And when we first met and got to know each other, I was like, I got to get this guy on a podcast. The types of stories you're telling me about your kart races, from epic wins to long distance stints in endurance races.
Yeah.
The list will go on, and we're going to cover it over the next half hour or so. Give us a hi in the chat if you're watching from YouTube or from Instagram. Leave your questions as well for Rami, and we'll pause in between and take those. But Rami, you're a veteran kart racer. You're a race instructor, driver coach, sim racer. We got to start with the age-old question though. How did you start karting?
Oh, oh wow. Well, to be honest with you, me and my brothers were always into cars. It's
Yeah.
it's it's always been like that, and especially my little brother, actually, Ramis, he was more into the cars than I was when we were kids. But it kind of grew into kind of something we did together, and it started out. We were very privileged that my father was part of the team that actually created the Dubai Autodrome in Dubai,
Okay.
and was part of the company that actually built the whole project. And it started out one
Wow.
summer. We went karting.
Yeah.
They had just hired in the manager of the kartdrome at the time, which was David Terrien, who was a world champion karter from the 90s, like raced against Formula One drivers in those series and Formula 3000 as well.
Yeah.
And so we just started taking lessons with him, and
No better person.
yeah, and we had no at the time we had no idea. We didn't even think anything would come out of it. But
Yeah.
if there's one thing that I've told many people that I've been coaching over the years is once you have the bug, it doesn't go away. And it never will. It's more of a lifestyle than anything else. And with the way people get into motor racing,
Yeah.
they don't get out of it. They don't get out of it unless something really really horrible happens. But that's not very often that happens.
What types of karts were those when you started? And which year was that?
Oh, year 2005. God, again, you're gonna
We,
make
we
me
got a
feel
lot of
old.
younger audience over here. So
You're gonna make me feel old. I already get called Unc every now and again. It's not great. But 2005 was when we
yeah.
started properly, and it was just in rental carts mostly. And for the first 2 years, all the
Okay.
racing that we were doing was in rental carts. 2007, me and my brother both moved into racing carts. My brother into the Rotax series, and me into it was a Beeland 250cc four-stroke
All right.
monster of a cart. Like the crazy. It's to this day the
Yeah.
craziest cart I've ever had. And yeah, we both started racing in that. We both instantly were top five winning races. Like just the coaching that we had before was
Yeah.
golden for us. And yeah, and after that, we slowly started moving up the ranks. I went off to university, so I never actually continued going into cars or anything like that. My younger brother
Yeah.
Rames, he went straight into at the time it was Formula Campus,
Okay.
which is basically the equivalent of Formula 4 at this moment. And then he went into Formula Renault. I
Wow.
went traveling with him around, being part of the race series, like just being around the area.
Yeah.
It was incredible. Um, After that, most of our motorsports, personally, my motorsports background has been in coaching, actually, and
Okay.
instructing at racetracks, helping people get better. I was part of Saudi Kart Middle East as well, which
Uh-huh.
we did a lot of coaching of younger drivers. I did a little bit of racing here and there, um, but yeah, and most of the instructing that came was at Dubai Autodrome, wherein we coached in touring cars, in Renault Clio Cup cars,
Yep.
normal road cars, even Audi TTs, Audi R8s, and then also we had a few GT3 cars, Ferrari GT3 and a McLaren 650S GT3, I believe as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's obviously based on your experience that you got from driving yourself. You're able to get into instructing, and I'd love to go more in detail with that shortly. Bringing you back to karting though, how was rental karts? Does that in UAE
That was in the
majority?
UAE. That was in the UAE, and it
And you
was
had a
in
league or something you were participating in?
yeah. So the league that we raced in was called the Saudi World Series (SWS),
SWS.
and
Okay, we love
yeah,
SWS.
we love I love that series. And as a series, I don't think there is many other
Yeah,
sport. I'm not just talking motorsports. I'm talking sports series
yeah,
where you can really see so many different, so many people within one series. I
yeah.
think each country had a specific Sodi kart track, and within that country, the top three would be able to qualify for the world finals at the end of the year.
Correct.
We went as an endurance team, I think 4 times, 3 or 4 times. I can't remember exactly.
Yeah.
My team won it once. I went as
Wow.
a sprint. I went as a sprint racer
Yeah.
twice and finished in the top 10 twice, which the sprint series was hugely competitive. And one of the cruxes of rental kart racing, which I'm sure you know, is they say all the carts are the same, but they're never the same.
Oh, of
So
course they're the same. What are you talking about? They're the same.
yeah, I don't. No, I'm allowed to say this now. They're not the same. They're not the same. I wasn't allowed to say it when I was
Yeah.
with you, but yes, no, I can now admit it.
And in Saudi, SWS, it's a different card every session, right?
Yes.
It's
So basically,
generally a card draw you do,
exactly. So it's fair for everybody. You have to
you can say.
pick and draw carts. If you get a good cart, you get a good cart. If you don't get a good
Yeah.
cart, you got to do as well as you can, pretty much.
What was the craziest SWS experience or race you had?
Uh, the first one where I went as a sprint racer. I went
Yeah.
in as I wouldn't say unknown, but it was more of there were guys in there that were veterans of the sport, younger than me, but veterans of the SWS.
Mm,
And I remember we had to switch tracks at one point, and there were 2 tracks in RKC in Paris where the World Finals were being held.
okay.
And all weekend on the big track, I was top 6, top 7, something like that. We got onto the smaller track, and I went out on track, and nobody had any practice on that track at that given time. And I went out, did my qualifying session, came in, didn't really feel like it was that quick, but all of a sudden I was on pole. And I,
Wow.
I, and I went. Every other driver came up to me going like, "How did you do that?" And I genuinely had to say, "I don't know." I don't know if it was me being quick or
Yeah.
everybody else being slow, but it just didn't click in my head why that was happening or how that was happening. So put it on pole. I finished second in that race, and then
Mm,
overall, I think I finished sixth that year.
so,
I think it was sixth overall out of like the drivers that were there. There were I think 140 drivers, and
yeah,
overall there are like 10,000, 15,000 drivers in SWS. So
correct.
top six is not too bad.
It's not
I
bad.
was
It's not
quite
bad.
I was quite happy with that.
It ties in nicely to a question we got on Instagram. Somebody's asking, "What's your favorite driving style?"
Ooh. I'm gonna quote Sebastian Vettel here.
Okay.
I like it a little bit loosey goosey. I like the rear
Ah,
end. I like the rear end to step out. I understeer is my absolute worst enemy. I hate it. I hate it with a vengeance. It's
yeah.
honestly one of the. But yeah, a bit loosey goosey on the rear. Rotate the car or cart into the corner. Point it towards the apex, then the throttle and go. That's basically what I. So I guess if you would compare it to a driver, Senna would be a little bit too far fetched because he's way more aggressive than, but he's the greatest of all time. But he's way more aggressive than I feel that I am. So I
Hmm.
would say closer to like Daniel Ricciardo style, a little bit late on the brakes,
Yeah.
rotating, send the throttle, full send, all that.
Yeah. Lick the stamp and send it.
Yes, exactly,
Dive bombs
exactly,
here and there.
exactly.
Let's have a quick chat about endurance racing because you've done a lot of endurance races. I remember there was a story you were telling me where you drove for so long and you lost so much weight, and then your mum couldn't recognize you after, and she was mad at you.
That was oh god, that what with it. So that was my first race with SCG. We were racing in the corporate category. So basically,
Yeah.
it was me as the pro driver, and the rest of the team was built with just people from a company, which was Shuari Group.
Okay.
And it was just people in the office that wanted to go racing, and they came in. We did a little bit of coaching with them, but they're not
Yeah.
pro drivers. So the event was 24 hours, and they put me in every other stint. So,
Okay.
and the stints were an hour long.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
basically, I drove 12 hours of that race.
What?
I technically drove 11 hours and 40 minutes because they had to pull
Yeah.
me in one stint 20 minutes early. But I
That's
drove
crazy.
11 hours and 40 minutes that race. I was having the time of my life. Don't
Yeah.
get me
Yeah. Yeah.
wrong. I
Uh,
was really enjoying it. I was
how old were you then?
exhausted. I was 23, 24, something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
A
Yeah.
good 13 years ago. God, oh God, I'm feeling old already. Um, yeah. So I was about 23, 24, and I got home after that, and I checked my
Yeah.
weight. I had weighed in at 80 kilos with my suit
Yeah.
and helmet. I checked my weight when I got home. I was 74 kilos.
What?
Yeah, I was
No.
74 kilos, and
What?
I think I slept for 18 hours that night. The
Wow.
18 hours straight.
Surprised.
My mum told me she had to come in and check if I was still breathing, which which to be honest with you, like
Yeah.
I understand, but I
Yeah.
was just so tired. I was so exhausted that day. It was well, everyone thinks you jump in a cart, you just drive, but
Mm.
it's a full body experience. Like it's
Mm.
it's a lot of core work, it's a lot of neck work, it's a lot of arm work, it's a lot of leg work even.
Yeah.
And by the time you're done with it, like
Yeah.
you feel empty. It just
Yes.
everything's been drained out of you. And but most of it's water weight. So all that weight came back within 24 hours. Like
Okay.
it wasn't
Wow.
like we dropped the weight and we kept it. All the weight came back 24 to 48 hours later, just once you
Mm.
start to replenish fluids and food and all that. And once you say, and it's not like we're not doing that during the race, but you
Hmm.
lose so much of it that you need to be very, very careful. And another thing for anyone out there that's actually doing endurance racing, there also is such a thing as overhydration. And I learned that the
Oh.
hard way. I learned that the
Okay.
hard way. There was a race, it was 40 degrees, something like that. And I
Yeah.
got off the track and I downed like 1.5 liters or 2 liters of water within like 5 minutes. And I was
Yeah.
just so thirsty. Within 5 minutes, I was on the ground, and people were asking me what the hell was going on.
Whoa.
Yeah, it was. I genuinely had to take a break. The first half of the
Yeah.
race,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
completely couldn't drive, and yeah. So please be careful of that as well, and
Correct.
also replenish with electrolytes, not just water. I learned that the hard way, and I won't
Yeah.
let anybody else make the same mistake as I did.
Ties nicely into a question which it's the broad aspect. You've covered one aspect of it. Is karting dangerous?
Yes, yes, of course it is. If you want to go into
Yeah.
the basic forms of it, you
Yeah.
are sitting in a cart with a plastic or fiberglass seat, with a fuel tank in between your legs, with plastic bumpers on the side of
Yeah.
it. If you want to go into the most simple form of it,
True.
yes, it's
True.
100% dangerous. But any form of motorsports is dangerous, and I've
Yeah.
said this to every single person that I've coached. If you don't like that, that's fine. That's completely okay. It's not for you. But even if you go as a fan to like a Formula One race, for example, or a GT3 car race, if you look at the back of your ticket, there's a little triangle, little warning on it saying motorsports is dangerous. That includes being a fan, being a
Mm.
marshal, being a driver, being someone walking by the circuit, like anything.
Mm.
Motorsports is dangerous because of what is going on the track. That's exactly what it is. You go
Yeah.
rally racing, you see people on the sides of the track. They're more in danger than the drivers are to some extent.
It's true.
It's a danger is a in context. You have to think about it. You drive safely. You drive in your within your limits.
Yeah.
Can it be classed as dangerous? Yes, but you need to drive within your limits.
No, absolutely. I think that's a good point. What would you tell drivers whose parents have that concern? Oh, it's too dangerous. You can't do it.
At the end of the day, that's
Yeah.
up to the driver to convince the parents that they can do it safely. I've
Mm.
been part of teams where I'm coaching a 6-year-old kid, and the
Yeah.
dad's like pushing and pushing and pushing and wanting to go, and the mum isn't. And I've been part of coaching teams where it's the opposite way around. The mum's the
Yeah.
one pushing, and the dad's like, no, 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 you can't do this. It's not just a mum or dad thing. It just depends on who you are and what your focus is. So if you're a kid and your mum and dad say it's too dangerous for you to go driving, okay,
Mhm.
and that's fair. And to be honest, as a dad now, I can say, yeah, I get that, and it's about them really taking care of you at the end of the day.
Mm.
If you can show them that what you can do and that it's something that you really want to do, then they can put their own thoughts of that in their pockets and let you go for it. But you need to be the one to prove to them that this is something that you want and this is
Yeah.
something that you want to focus on for sure. Because if you're just going to go into it and you're just
Mm.
going to pull out of it after 6 months, that's not really going to be something you need to convince them with. Convince them that this is something that you truly, truly, truly want. And that's the best advice that I can give.
Very, very good point you made there. We got a good question from Gui Racing. He's asking, what's your favorite Sodi kart that you've driven?
Ooh,
Different models. Rental, even owner.
to be honest with you, the original one, I can't remember the actual name of it. This was back
Yeah.
in 2006, 2007, was
Okay.
my absolute favorite because of the simplicity of it. But the one that we've had the most success in was probably the Sodi RX-8, which was the rental cart version. That as a rental cart, the RX-8
Yeah.
for me was probably the most success that I ever had in it. I've seen the new RT10s.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's right. I think it is the GT series, the old ones. But I've driven the RT10s, which are incredible. They're for a rental cart, like wow, they're absolutely incredible. And I never really competed in it. My last really competitive race was back in 2008, early 2019. So
Yeah.
it's been a while. It's been a while. So and things change very fast in motorsports.
We got a good question about weight over here from
Hmm.
Gianni. How much of a difference does it make if a driver's 40 kilos heavier in a 270cc car?
270cc. We did the math one day. So I remember I'll compare it in the 390cc cart because that's
Yeah.
our baseline. So my brother was 10 kilos lighter than me.
Mm.
So he went out in one cart and then I went out in another cart and I would lose 1.5 tenths per lap. So 150 milliseconds per lap. That's
Okay.
basically what it added up to. I think it
Yeah.
was a little bit more than that. But over the course of an endurance race, every 10 laps you lose a second. That's
Yeah.
huge. That's absolutely huge. So 40 kilos, let's say, you're probably going to be losing half a second to 7/10 a lap just because of that. Which is why I've always said weight does matter a lot in
Mm.
karting. But a lot of kart series now have weight boxes where you can add the weights into the cart, which
Yeah.
kind of levels the playing field a little bit. But there's more into that you kind of lose more time by putting weight in the boxes and blah blah blah. But we
Yeah.
won't get into that just yet. Just yet.
Could get into the nitty gritty bits of that. No, I think this next question from Plains is really good. How
Mm.
does what is it? How much do you guys think sim racing correlates and helps with karting? Of course, you've done a lot of sim racing yourself. That's what you're currently pursuing as well. What is your response to Plains?
Look, sim racing is a great way to get into motorsports. In
Yeah.
in my personal opinion, it teaches you the absolute basics: racing lines, braking points. And it teaches you the feel of the steering wheel, especially if you've got a wheel like this. The feel of the car that you get into does help a lot. One thing that I'm different than most sim racers is that most of my racing experiences come from real cars going into sim racing. Most sim racers, it's the other way around. They start in
Mm,
sim racing and they go out. So
sure.
one thing I've noticed, and this is something that's actually improved my real life racing,
Yeah.
is when you're driving a real car or a real cart, you're focused a lot on the feel of what's going on around you. uh, we call it butts and seats. So
Mm,
the feeling you get through the seat is most of what you go off and how you actually steer the car.
yeah.
In sim racing, you don't really get that. You don't get that feel. So your main focus is actually different. So you're actually focused more on your vision, on your hearing, and on the feel through the steering wheel. And that's actually what's helped me more when it's gotten back into real racing. That I don't have to rely solely on feel. I actually have other things that I'm focusing on now that actually help out a lot. But for me, sim racing is the new grassroots motorsports.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
when grassroots motorsports, if you think about what grassroots motorsports is, it's karting.
Correct.
And back in the day, karting wasn't that expensive, so it was actually
Mm-hmm.
quite easy to get into karts. Nowadays, karting has gotten the price of karting
Oh,
has gone stratospheric. Like
yeah,
it's incredible. So yes, it is still a grassroots motorsport in comparison to like Formula cars or anything like that. But for somebody to get into motorsports in general, this is the way to do it.
mm,
You get a G29 Logitech wheel, you stick it to your desk, get Gran Turismo or any other sim. I always say Gran Turismo because
yeah,
everyone's got a PlayStation and everyone's got a TV that they can plug into. That's
exactly.
probably the easiest way to get into sim racing.
Yeah,
Later on, you can get into iRacing, you can get into ACC, you can get into Le Mans Ultimate. AC Evo is coming out very soon as well.
yeah,
So
yeah.
like, there's so many different sims that you can choose from. Find one that suits you and go for it.
It's a really good answer you gave, and a great example is Suelio Almeida,
Hmm.
uh, top guy with big following now on sim
Yeah,
racing, and
he's
he's doing real life racing now. From, as you said,
yeah.
from a G29 to radicals, and I think is it Tory cars he's doing.
It's incredible. It's
Yeah.
incredible.
Well, let let's go on to coaching, and that
Hmm.
obviously is a big part from karting to cars. You've seen so many different drivers, beginners to experienced guys. What are some good stories you have from coaching? You can tell us.
Let's see. Uh, most recently when I was in LaSalle,
Yes.
uh,
Okay.
three boys decided to show up at the academy and change my life completely. Like blow my mind with everything that they ever did. And it was Tamim Hasiba, Taha Hasiba, and Badr Salati. Those three boys, I, I, I can say this. They changed my life, honestly, just because
Wow.
of how much I never realized that I could get close to kids like that,
Yeah.
and how much they could improve in such a short period of time. When they
Correct.
first started, Taha and Tamim specifically, when they first started, we didn't really think much to like. I'll be very honest with you. We didn't really think much and see anything going forward. And
Mm,
the rate of improvement of those two was
yeah.
I've never seen it before. Personally, in the times that I've been coaching, I never saw it before.
Yeah.
And then one day, Bedr showed up, and Bedr was fast from the get go, and I was just like, why have you never done this before? Come on, go, yeah, let's go. So I took those three, and this is the funny part. I took
Yeah.
those three. Their first ever competitive race was
Yeah.
the Mina finals in
Yes.
2021 or 2022,
22, 22 in Oman.
2022. So it was literally the best drivers in the Middle East. And then I took these three boys who had never driven in
Yeah.
any competitive race, and I
Yeah.
took them to that race. And I just remember being there, and the boys were obviously nervous in their own ways.
Mm,
They didn't like showing it, but I could tell. I
mm,
could tell. And the goal of the weekend was to not finish last.
yeah.
It's very simple. With the experience that they had, I put them in racing carts 9 days before the Mina. They had never driven
Wow.
racing carts until 9 days before the Mina. We did
Yeah.
three
Yeah.
days of testing and then straight into the race. Like you don't do that. You don't do that. And those three boys impressed me so much that weekend. They had a few incidents, yes, of course. They had a few crashes, yes, of course. It's normal and it's to be expected. But their pace was within a second of the fastest guys. They were fighting with people at the back of the grid, and they didn't finish last. And it was
Yeah,
so impressive. It was so impressive to see how well they did. We
yeah,
went back next year. They were finishing mid pack. It was great.
yeah,
And then this is after I left in 2024,
yeah.
the 2023, the first year, was it 2023? The first year they did it in
Uh,
Qatar?
the Mina, right?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. It was 23.
Y-
Yeah,
So 23, this is after I left Qatar. They
the
go
year
in.
after, the next Mina,
Yeah,
basically.
it was the
Yeah, yeah.
next Mina. They go after at Lusail, and they're literally fighting for wins.
Yeah.
And then this year I saw Talha winning the DD2 category, which was just like I was so proud. Tamim basic finishing P2, but then I saw the move that he did for P2, and I was like, no, you're not going to keep
And did you
P2.
teach him that move?
I I pledge silence. I did not teach him that. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what you. I've made that move on him plenty of times, but
And now, of course, they're in F4.
yes,
They're
and
taking
now
the next step.
racing in F4, and I was watching their first race.
Yeah,
Uh, it was a little bit of a proud dad moment. Like I know I'm not part of their coaching team anymore. I'm not there, but I always have a very very soft spot for those boys. So I'm gonna keep an eye out for them no matter what.
no, I can agree to all of that, and that, as you said, they made leaps and bounds of progress within a short space of time. 2 years ago or 3 years ago, you can say, in rental carts, chubby
Exactly.
kids, and they've just transformed their bodies, their driving, and you know taken
It's
that with them.
it's incredible to see. It really is incredible to see, honestly.
Absolutely. We got a question over here from Plains again. It's both of you have experiences dealing with other drivers. How can you know if your performance is being limited by your equipment or by your skill? All right, nice one.
Ooh, very interesting question, actually.
Yeah.
So the way that I've always done it, and I'll start with carts. If you go around and you're doing lap times exactly the same every single time, you've reached your limit of what you can do in that specific cart.
Correct.
The only way for you to really know whether or not it's the cart or yourself is to get into something faster. Go out and go out and buy something faster. Go out and try something faster.
Mm,
If you get straight up to pace in that new version of what you're driving, then automatically yes, it's definitely the cart that was holding you back. When it comes to equipment for sim racing, this is where it gets a little bit tricky. Tricky. Like for example, I started on a G29,
okay.
and then I moved to a T300 after that, Thrustmaster T300, and immediately I could feel a difference. But my pace didn't improve. My pace was the same. It was more my consistency that improved because the equipment was better, which means I could do the same lap over and over and over and over again.
Mm,
After the T300, I got onto this one, which is a Fanatec DD Pro. My pace improved not because of the wheel itself, but because of the pedals. I was able to feel the brake a little bit more. I was able to trail brake into corners a little bit better just because it was a more precise feeling through the pedals. The wheel itself took me a very long time to get used to because it's the first
yeah.
direct drive wheel that I had. I had to tinker with the settings, get everything the way that I liked to do it. And then once I did, my pace stayed exactly the same.
Mm.
Like I'm 99% sure I could get the same pace out of my T300
Yeah,
that
yeah,
I can on this wheel. But it goes the same way from the G29 to T300. My consistency has improved massively through this wheel more than anything.
yeah,
And it's more because of the precision of it. I'm able to do the same thing over and over again. People watching from my stream will probably disagree with me completely because I make 24 mistakes a lap most times. But you get the idea. It's more consistency than anything else.
yeah. I'll just add to that is, if
Mm,
it's card related, if you have someone else to go up against and you guys drive the same karts, try to be the same weight as well. That makes a big difference. Otherwise, ballast the weight, and
Definitely.
you do one session, I do one session. Then we change the kart, and you do one session, that car, I do the next session, and see what lap times you both are getting. Of course, there's other factors, track conditions and all and things to factor, but having someone else to compare who drives the same kart as you could also help see where your strengths and weaknesses are. We're going to round off with a question: what does the future hold for Rami? Sim racing, on-track driving?
I'm never gonna cut out on-track driving for myself. It's taken a little bit of a break since I had my two boys.
Happy
Obviously,
birthday.
budget is a huge thing in racing, and my budget right now goes directly into the kids. But mostly the on-track driving that I will be doing will hopefully be actually coaching my firstborn Danny, who's going to be starting karting very soon, as long as his mum agrees with me 100%. I might do a little bit here and there once the kids get a little bit bigger, but it's not going to be a real focus of mine. To be honest with you, I'm going to be focusing more on the coaching side of things more than anything, because I enjoy it. It's something I really enjoy.
Absolutely.
But at the moment, I'm streaming on Twitch, just because we were talking about this earlier. I play Gran Turismo a lot, mostly for the fun of it. Not because it's the best sim out there, which it's just not. But it's a great game to play. It's fun, it's enjoyable, it's easy to get into, and the community around it is actually quite good. Which is why I also decided to start streaming it, because I was getting a little bit bored of the game.
Yeah.
And I thought, what better way than to get in the people that I know from the game into the stream to have a bit of fun with. And then we start doing lobbies together, we start doing daily races together for a little bit of fun. And yeah, I've been streaming on there since October, pretty much 5 days a week, pretty much. It's grown more than I ever thought it could, honestly. I genuinely didn't think it would grow as much as it did. People seem to like it, people seem to enjoy it. People seem to enjoy coming in to laugh at me, and that's completely fine as well. And I have no issues with that. I have no problems.
And where can they find you on Twitch?
Ramster424 on Twitch. 424 being the last number that I ever raced with competitively.
There we go. Ramster242 is on Twitch. Be sure to check out Rami's channel.
424.
424.
Sorry.
Tune in around five days a week you're streaming at the moment?
Yes, I'll be posting my schedule this week. I haven't posted the schedule for this week, but I'll post the schedule.
And usually what time is it?
Evening times, CET, so Central European time, usually around 8 p.m. We'll actually be live tonight from 9 p.m. CET. We've got a few competitive races to do.
Superb. I think that's been an awesome chat. We've gone through a lot of questions from karting to coaching and now to sim racing. We look forward to the next episode of Race Talk the week after next. But until the next episode, guys, we'll see you there. Take care. Goodbye.